Good morning, everyone. I want to thank you for joining me this morning. It is good to visit with you once more. I'm Reverend Kathy Howell and the chaplain here at the Hermitage. I wanted to show you one of my little treasures. This is a Native American pine needle basket. It was hand woven by Adrian Celestine. Adrian is a member of the Coshada Native American tribe, and the Coshada Indians are a small tribe in southwest Louisiana. But she made it for me as a gift. It's really, I hope you can appreciate how finely it's woven. And it's, of course, I think highly decorated for a Native American basket. She showed the lid fits perfectly, and it's just as beautiful as it can be, and it has a wonderful smell of pine needles. I've had it since 2007 when she gave it to me as a gift. Now, the reason she gave it to me is what I'd like to share with you today. You see, at the time, I was living in southwest Louisiana. I was pastor of a small church, two small churches actually, but at Raymond, the church I was living at was Raymond United Methodist Church. Now, I have an aunt, and she was visiting me, as she does, Aunt Liz, and she was visiting me as she did every winter at that time, because she's from upstate New York. I think I've mentioned that, a little town in Redfield, and they get lots and lots of snow every winter. So she, like so many people who live in who are retired and live in a place where it snows a lot, well, they go south and stay with family for the better part of the winter. She always came and stayed with me for about a month. It was great to have her there with me. At the time, I was living in the parsonage, of course, and I had lots of room. Most of the time, parsonages were designed for pastors with large families. That's what they always hope for. So I think I had 4 bedrooms in that parsonage, so we had lots of space. Well, anyway, while Aunt Liz was there, she had a flare-up of her diverticulitis and went to the hospital. She was in the hospital a couple of days and was improving. And then on Saturday, she was scheduled to be discharged. I drove in, which was about 10 miles. I lived about 10 miles outside the small town of Jennings. And Jennings had a hospital. It wasn't a large hospital, it was probably only about 80 beds. But it was there in southwest Louisiana because it was 1 hour to Lafayette, 1 hour to Lake Charles, different directions. So they needed a hospital right there. And it was really fortunate because when members of my congregation were in the hospital, very often they were right there in Jennings. And so I would always stop by and see them. And I went ahead and visited the 2 members I had in the hospital that morning. And then I went to Aunt Liz's room, and I was waiting for the doctor to come. And I was because I expected her to be discharged. Well, you know how it is. Doctors don't always come. And it was a tough day for me because, you see, it was February the 24th. February the 24th is the day that my husband, Chuck, died. He died actually 4 years before, and he died exactly at noon is when he stopped breathing. I remember being there at his bedside, looking at the clock. Well, I don't think 12 noons on February 24th has ever passed since then that I don't think about Chuck. It's gotten easier, and the thoughts are memories, warm ones. But I remember it was about 11:45, and I was waiting for the doctor to come. We expected him around noon, but he hadn't come yet. And then all of a sudden, I said, I'm hungry. And of course the cafeteria was closed. It was Saturday. I'm going to go across the street to Wendy's, I told Aunt Liz. I'm going to run across the street to Wendy's and get a salad. And I'll be right back. And I don't know why, all of a sudden, I just had to do it. I felt this strong urge. I attributed it to being restless because it was coming up on the time that Chuck had died. And I usually like to be alone then. And I thought maybe that's what it was. Well, as I went through the lobby, there was nobody there. After all, it's a small hospital. It was a Saturday. No one was around. And all of a sudden, I heard a scream. I heard the kind of scream that as a nurse in the emergency room, which I was had been for 25 years at that time, before I stopped nursing and began to pastor churches full time when I graduated seminary a couple of years before. And I thought, my gosh, somebody's died or they're having a baby, I thought to myself. So I ran toward the front door, and there, parked right in front of on the breezeway, in front of the main doors of the front doors of the hospital, was a car, and there was a woman in the back seat screaming. And Adrienne Celestine said, my daughter is having a baby. Her husband went inside to find somebody, but he's not back yet. I pulled the car door open, and I looked. There, laying on the back seat, is Sherry Grabney. She actually has her head on the passenger side, and I had opened the driver's side door, and I absolutely saw that baby wasn't waiting for anybody. So I just put my purse down on the floor of the back seat, kneeled down, said, come on, Sherry, come on, we're gonna have I'm gonna need you to push. The baby was crowning. So very gently, I had her push, and I delivered the head, and I had a little trouble with the shoulders. The baby was kind of blue. I was a little worried. And so then I did exactly like I'd been taught in nursing school, and surprisingly, in my 25-year career up to that point, in nursing, in emergency departments, I had never delivered a baby by myself. I'd assisted doctors to deliver babies. I picked up babies in back seats of cars. Once caught a baby that a woman who was sitting in a wheelchair sort of shot out, and I dived and caught it before it hit the floor. But in this case, I really had to deliver that baby. And it's funny, when you've trained like that, it all comes back. So I delivered the baby, and I was drying him off, and somebody comes up behind me, and I didn't know who it was, and they said, I said, we're having a baby here, I'm a nurse, but I don't work for this hospital. Do you want to take over? And the person tells me, I'm a housekeeper. And I'll get somebody though, and she ran off again. And soon I had the nursing supervisor and the people from newborn nursery. They came down, and they took charge of everything and delivered the baby. He was small. It was a boy, and he was small. She was 28 weeks at the time. A pregnancy should be 40 weeks. And here she was 28 weeks, so that child was 3 months premature. She'd had a lot of trouble, and she'd had several miscarriages. But here, I delivered that baby at pretty much 12 noon. 4 years, almost to the minute, that my husband had died. Well, Harlem, they named him Harlem, and Harlem Drake Grabney is his name. And Harlem was small. He was just under 2 pounds. He and his mother were transferred from the small hospital in Jennings to a large hospital in Lake Charles, Louisiana. They did very well. Harlem did fine. He was just small. He stayed in the hospital a long time. I think he was in the hospital until May. And then when he was home, and he'd been home a week, I went to visit. And here I am with Harlem. I don't know, that's a terrible, hold on, I'm going to turn it this way so you don't get the glare. Here I am. That's me. And that's little Harlem. I don't know if you can see him very well. Harlem weighs 6 pounds 2 ounces there. And that's his mother, Sherry. Sherry told me that she was really surprised when I came. She said it was like she remembered me so well for having been there. And Sherry's mother, Adrian, who was saying, I didn't know what to do, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you just opened the car door, calmly put down your purse. I wasn't particularly calm, I want you to know, but that's the way Adrian had seen it. She said, I saw you set down your purse, and you just delivered him, and in a couple of minutes, I had a grandson. And that's when at that time, which this was in May, I said, so what was that? That was February, March, April, May. 3 months later, she presented me with this basket. She said that she had learned the art of basket weaving from her grandmother, that when she was young, they were poor, and she'd learned the Native American skill from her family. This was the traditional way that the Coshada Indians make baskets. And she had made this one for me. I was really touched. I truly was. You know, the Bible tells us that God's timing is perfect. If I was writing a story, I don't know that I could have written a story that would have come together in such a way as it did that day at the hospital, the American Legion Hospital in Jennings, Louisiana. 4 years ago to the minute, I had watched my husband's life leave his body as he breathed his last. And almost at the same hour, I brought a new life into the world. I want you to know that I had never before I don't know why I got up at that moment, until all of a sudden I said, I'm going to eat, I'm going to go across the street to Wendy's. I wasn't particularly hungry before that. I don't know that I thought about it before, but I told Aunt Liz I needed to eat, and I needed to eat now. And that's how I happened to be there at the moment that Sherry was delivering Harlem, and I could be there to help. Life is funny that way. But you know, they say God works in mysterious ways, and He really does. I tell people that I see these kinds of coincidences a lot, where things just happen in the right moment. It sort of all comes together. I mean, it's pretty surprising the way that happens. I think it happens a lot in our lives. For me, of course, I believe that God put me right there, right then. And now I can't think about the 24th of February, 12 noon, without thinking about both Chuck, who died at that time, it's the anniversary of his death, but it's also the anniversary of Harlem's birth. Scripture also tells us, one of our favorite passages, to everything there is a season, a time and every purpose unto heaven, a time to be born and a time to die. Never did those words ring so true to me before. I was really blessed. Been blessed with so many things in my life. And being your chaplain, even though we're separated at this time physically, to talk to you on the phone, to hear your voices, to know that it won't be too much longer, I hope and pray, that we'll be worshiping together, working jigsaw puzzles, playing cards, doing all the things that we've done as a community. And I so look forward to doing them again. I really want to thank you, and I encourage you to look for the times when things just seem to happen by coincidence. And try to look beyond that moment and see. Maybe it is God working behind the scenes in your life. You know, I had a great friend, and one of her favorite sayings was, "A coincidence is just when God decides to remain anonymous." Maybe it is. Until next time, God bless you.